The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was silent. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their seats, watching the human delegation with cold eyes. Admiral Park stood beside President, his uniform pressed and perfect, his face showing nothing. But inside, his heart was beating fast. For 50 years, humanity had worked for this moment. They had followed every rule. They had shared their technology. They had sent soldiers to die in peacekeeping missions across the galaxy, all because they wanted one thing: to join the Galactic Council as equals. High Arbiter rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that held no warmth. His voice echoed through the hall like ice breaking. "The Council has voted," said. "The species known as humanity is membership. The vote was unanimous." Felt stiffened beside him. In the seats behind them, he heard Ambassador Minu take a sharp breath. General's hands curled into fists. Stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but knew her well enough to hear the anger beneath it. "May we know the reason for this decision?" Looked down at her like she was an insect. "Evolutionary instability. Your species advances too quickly. You are unpredictable, dangerous." "We have followed every protocol," said. "We have done everything you asked. And yet you remain what you are." Thin lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "The Council has also decided to implement protective measures. Your species is hereby quarantined to your home system. You will not expand beyond your solar system. You will not trade with Council members. You will not develop military vessels beyond basic planetary defense." The words hit like physical blows. Watched shoulders tighten, watched her hands tremble for just one moment before she controlled herself. "You are putting us in a cage," she said quietly. "We are protecting the galaxy," replied, "from you." The hall erupted in murmurs. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. A few even seemed ashamed. But no one spoke against the decision. No one stood up for humanity. Leaned close to, "We should leave. There is nothing more to gain here." She nodded once. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the exit. The human delegation followed her, walked at the rear, his eyes scanning the faces of the alien delegates. He wanted to remember them. He wanted to remember this moment. As they boarded their ship, Minu spoke first. "They were afraid of us. That is the real reason." "Of course they were," growled. "We went from radio signals to matching their technology in 200 years. It took them thousands." "Fear makes people do terrible things," said softly. She was staring out the viewport at the stars. "But it also makes them blind." The ship lifted off from Nexus Prime. Watched the station grow smaller until it was just another point of light among millions. "What do we do now?" he asked. Turned to face him. There was something in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was determination, pure and hard as diamond. "We go home," she said, "and we build something they never expected." 3 days later, addressed the United Nations on Earth. Her speech was broadcast to every colony in the solar system, to every ship, to every station. Billions of people stopped what they were doing to listen. "The Galactic Council has decided that humanity is unworthy," she said. Her voice was steady and clear. "They have told us we cannot have the stars. They have told us to stay in our cage and be quiet." She paused. The silence was heavy. "I am here to tell you that we will not accept this. We will not beg for their approval. We will not wait for their permission." Her voice rose. "If they will not share the galaxy with us, then we will build our own place among the stars. Today, I am announcing the formation of the Terran Dominion. One government, one people, one purpose." Around the world, people began to cheer. In the colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, workers stopped their machines to listen. On ships traveling through the darkness of space, crews gathered around screens. "They think isolation will weaken us," continued. "They do not understand what humans do when we are told we cannot. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We find another way." stood in the back of the assembly hall watching her speak. Beside him, had tears in his eyes, Minyu was nodding slowly. "She is going to change everything," Minyu whispered. "No," replied, "we all are." In the weeks that followed, the world transformed. Old enemies became allies. Nations that had fought for centuries put aside their differences. The threat from outside had done what nothing else could. It had united humanity. Dr. Han was called to a secret meeting in Geneva. She was a physicist, one of the best on Earth, and she had spent her career studying faster-than-light travel. When explained what she wanted, his eyes went wide. "You want us to build our own FTL technology," said, "without using council gates." "The council controls their gates," replied. "They can shut them down whenever they want. We need something they cannot take away." Was quiet for a long moment, then she smiled. "It will take years, maybe decades, but I think we can do it." "That is why I am giving you everything you need," said. "Money, people, resources, whatever it takes." And so Project Horizon was born. 3,000 scientists gathered in a secret facility beneath the ice of Europa. They worked in silence, hidden from council surveillance probes that watched the solar system like hungry eyes. Meanwhile began building something else. In the asteroid belt, far from prying sensors, he established training camps. Soldiers volunteered from every nation on Earth. They knew the risks. They knew that one day they might have to fight against enemies with better weapons and more ships. But they came anyway, because they were human, and humans did not stay in cages. Visited the camps often. He walked among the recruits, learning their names, hearing their stories. They came from every country, every background. Some were young, barely more than children. Others were veterans who had seen too much war already. "Why are you here?" he asked a young woman one day. Her name was Shin, and she had just finished pilot training at the top of her class. She thought about the question for a moment. Then she smiled. "Because someone told me I could not be here, and I never liked being told what I cannot do." Laughed. It was the most human answer he had ever heard. Back on Earth, watched the stars from her office window. Somewhere out there, the council believed they had solved the human problem. They believed humanity would fade away, trapped in their little corner of space. They were wrong. Turned back to her desk, where reports from Project Horizon and the military training programs waited for her review. There was so much work to do, so many years of preparation ahead. But for the first time since Nexus Prime, she felt hope. The galaxy had rejected humanity. Very well. Humanity would build its own dominion. And one day they would show the council exactly what they had tried to cage. One day the stars would belong to everyone. 10 years passed like shadows in the night. The Galactic Council watched humanity through their surveillance probes. They saw humans building habitats on moons. They saw mining operations in the asteroid belt. They saw a species that seemed to have accepted its fate. High Arbiter reviewed the reports every month. Each time he smiled his cold smile and moved on to other matters. The human problem was solved. They were contained. They were no longer a threat. He saw exactly what humanity wanted him to see. Deep beneath the frozen surface of Europa, Dr. Han had not slept in 3 days. She stood before a holographic display, her eyes red from exhaustion, her hands shaking from too much coffee. Around her, 3,000 scientists worked in shifts that never ended. "Run it again," she said. Her assistant, a young man named, looked worried. "Doctor, you need rest. We have been running this simulation for weeks." "One more time," insisted. "I think I know what we have been missing." The simulation began. Numbers and equations danced across the display. Watched them with the focus of a hunter tracking prey. And then, suddenly, she saw it. "There," she whispered, "right there. We have been trying to push through space. But what if we fold it instead?" Frowned. "Fold space. That is just theory." "Everything is just theory until someone proves it." Began typing furiously. "Get me engineer. I need her to look at these calculations." Arrived within the hour. She was small and quiet, the kind of person who disappeared in a crowd, but her mind was one of the sharpest in human history. She studied equations for 20 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up with wonder in her eyes. "This could work," she said. "This could actually work." They called it the fold drive. Instead of traveling through space, it would bend space around the ship. No gates, no council control, pure, independent, faster-than-light travel. It took them 6 more years to build a working prototype. In the asteroid belt, General had his own secrets to keep. The training camps had grown into something much larger. Hidden among the rocks and dust, his people had built shipyards, real shipyards capable of producing warships. Captain Shin walked beside him through one of the facilities. She had grown in the past years, becoming one of the finest pilots in the human fleet. But more than that, she had become a leader. The younger recruits looked up to her like she was something more than human. "How many ships do we have now?" she asked. 214, replied. "Not enough to fight the council directly, but enough to defend ourselves." "Do you think it will come to war?" Was silent for a long moment. "I hope not, but hope is not a strategy. We must be ready for anything." The ships were different from council vessels. Smaller, faster, more maneuverable. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could find and then improved on it. Where council ships relied on heavy armor and powerful weapons, human ships relied on speed and unpredictability. "The council thinks in straight lines," often told his commanders. "They expect their enemies to do the same. We will not give them that comfort." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ryu ran a different kind of operation. He was an intelligence officer, quiet and careful, with a face that people forgot 5 minutes after meeting him. His job was to make sure the council never discovered what humanity was really doing. He had agents everywhere. Some of them worked on council stations, cleaning floors and serving food, invisible to the important people who walked past them every day. Others had infiltrated the surveillance network, feeding false data to the probes watching human space. "The council sees what we want them to see," reported to Admiral Park. "Peaceful humans, defeated humans, no threat at all." Nodded slowly. "How long can we maintain this deception?" "As long as we need to. The council is arrogant. They believe they know everything. That arrogance is our greatest weapon." By the 8th year, humanity had established 17 colonies beyond the quarantine zone. They were small at first, just a few hundred people each, but they grew quickly. Humans were good at building new homes in hostile places. They had been doing it for thousands of years. The colonies were in a region of space that the council had dismissed as useless, too far from the trade routes, too poor in resources to be worth the effort. They never bothered to patrol it. They never saw humanity spreading like seeds in fertile soil. Ambassador Minyu traveled to these new colonies whenever he could. He had changed in the years since Nexus Prime. The diplomatic smile was still there, but behind it was something harder, something that remembered the humiliation of that day. "We are building something new," he told the colonists on a world they had named New Hope. "Not just homes, not just cities. We are building a future where we answer to no one but ourselves." The colonists cheered. They were farmers and engineers, teachers and doctors, ordinary people who had left everything behind for the chance to be free. Minyu looked at their faces and felt something warm in his chest. This was why they had suffered. This was why they had hidden and planned and waited for moments like this. In the 10th year, the fold drive was finally ready for testing, and had spent months checking and rechecking every system. There could be no mistakes. If this failed, years of work would be lost. Captain Shin volunteered to pilot the test flight. When tried to argue that she was too valuable to risk, she just smiled. "Someone has to be first," she said, "and I did not become a pilot to stay safe." The test ship was small, barely more than a cockpit with an engine attached. Sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls. Around her, the universe waited. "All systems are ready," his voice came through the comm. "You may proceed when ready." Took a deep breath, then she activated the fold drive. The universe twisted. For one impossible moment, she saw colors that had no names and heard sounds that could not exist. Then everything snapped back to normal, and she was somewhere else. 12 light-years from Earth. The journey had taken 4 minutes. "We did it," she whispered. Then louder into the comm, "We did it, the drive works." In the control room on Europa, collapsed into a chair and began to cry. Around her, scientists hugged each other and shouted with joy. Years of work, years of secrecy, years of doubt. And now, finally, they had succeeded. Word spread quickly through the hidden networks of humanity. In the colonies beyond the quarantine zone, people danced in the streets. In the training camps, soldiers raised their glasses in celebration. On Earth, President allowed herself a rare smile. "We are free," she said softly. "We are finally free." But she knew this was only the beginning. The Council would learn the truth eventually, and when they did, there would be consequences. On the 10th anniversary of their exile, addressed the Terran Assembly. Her hair was gray now, her face lined with years of worry and work, but her eyes still burned with the same fire. "We have spent a decade in shadow," she said, "building in secret, planning in silence, but shadows cannot last forever. The time has come to step into the light." Stood in the front row, listening to her words. He thought of all the sacrifices that had brought them to this moment. The scientists who had worked themselves to exhaustion, the soldiers who had trained in the darkness, the colonists who had risked everything for a new beginning. "The galaxy will learn what we have done," continued. "They will learn that humanity cannot be contained, cannot be controlled, cannot be." She raised her hand, and the assembly hall fell silent. "Let them come," she said. "We are ready." And somewhere in the cold depths of space, 27 human warships emerged from fold space for the first time. They hung in the darkness like silent promises of what was to come. The silent decade was over. The Terran Dominion was about to announce itself to the galaxy. The Council Trade Station orbited a dying star. It was old and busy, a place where ships from a dozen species came to buy and sell goods. It was also the place where a human merchant vessel had been illegally detained. Captain Shin sat in the command chair of the warship Unyielding Dawn. Around her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. They had trained for this moment for years. Now it was finally happening. "All ships report ready," her first officer said. Nodded, she activated the comm link to the fleet. "This is Captain Shin. On my mark, we jump." 27 ships powered up their fold drives. The universe bent around them. And then they were there, emerging from fold space in perfect formation around the Council Station. On the station, alarms began to scream. Admiral Park stood at the center of the formation aboard the flagship. He watched the Council garrison scramble to respond. 12 ships against 27. They were outnumbered and everyone knew it. He opened a channel to the station. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are holding human citizens without cause. Release them immediately and we will leave in peace." The response came after a long pause. The Council commander sounded confused and afraid. "You cannot be here. You are quarantined. You do not have FTL capability." "Clearly we do." His voice was calm. "I will ask once more, release our people." The merchant crew was freed within the hour. As their ship docked with the Unyielding Dawn, watched the Council vessels through her viewport. They had not moved. They had not fired a single shot. They were too shocked to do anything at all. "Get us out of here," ordered, "before they recover enough to be stupid." The fleet folded away into darkness. They left behind a galaxy that would never be the same. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter received the report with trembling hands. Humans, in Council space, with a fleet of warships, with FTL technology that did not require gates. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. It was real. How, he demanded, how did they do this? No one had an answer. The intelligence reports had shown nothing. The surveillance had detected nothing. For 10 years, humanity had fooled them completely. Called an emergency session of the Council. Delegates arrived from across the galaxy, all of them demanding answers that no one could give. The chamber that had once witnessed humanity's humiliation now buzzed with panic and confusion. We must respond with force, Warlord argued. He was the commander of the Council's enforcement fleet, a warrior from a species that had conquered 3-star systems before joining the Alliance. Strike now, before they grow stronger. And start a war we might not win, another delegate challenged. We do not know how many ships they have. We do not know their capabilities. We know they made fools of us, growled. That alone demands punishment. While the Council debated, reports continued to arrive. Human colonies had been discovered in the outer reach. More than a dozen worlds, some with populations in the hundreds of thousands. And they were not alone. Species that the Council had abandoned in that region were now trading with humans, forming partnerships, building something new together. Emissary studied the reports with growing unease, was different from most Council members. Where others saw humans as a threat, saw a species that had been treated badly and had refused to accept it. There was something admirable in that, even if saying so out loud would be dangerous. Secretly, sent a message to Ambassador Minyu. The two had met briefly years ago, during the first contact protocols. There had been something honest in Minyu's eyes that had never forgotten. The message was short: be careful, wants war. Some of us do not. Minyu received the message on New Hope, one of the larger human colonies. He read it 3 times, then showed it to President. We have friends in unexpected places, he said. Nodded slowly. We need to make a statement, something that shows the galaxy who we really are. They crafted the message together. Minyu wrote the words, but the voice was. When it was finished, they broadcast it on every frequency, to every corner of known space. To all species of the galaxy we speak as the Terran Dominion. We are the humans you tried to cage. We are the ones you said were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too ambitious. You were right. We are all of those things, but we are also something else. We are believers in freedom. In homes and stations across the galaxy, beings of every species listened. Some with fear, some with anger, and some, surprisingly, with hope. The Terran Dominion claims no territory belonging to the Council. We seek no conflict. We want no war, but we will not be contained. We will not ask permission to exist. We will not beg for approval from those who have already judged us unworthy. On the Council floor, watched the broadcast with cold fury. Every word was an insult. Every sentence was a challenge. Our borders are open to anyone who wishes to trade, travel, or build a new life. We believe in equality. We believe in partnership. We believe in a galaxy where every species can reach for the stars without asking permission. His voice softened. We know that some of you are afraid of us. We understand. Change is always frightening, but we are not your enemies. We could have hidden forever. We could have built our dominion in secret and never revealed ourselves. Instead, we chose to step into the light, because we believe that the galaxy deserves better than the Council's rigid control. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was strong and clear. This is our offer: join us or do not, trade with us or do not, but know this: the Terran Dominion will never surrender. We will never go back to the cage you built for us. We are humanity, and we are here to stay. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, the silence was heavy. On Nexus Prime turned to Warlord. You wanted war, prepare your fleet. Smiled, it was not a pleasant smile, with pleasure. but has left to gather his forces, approached. This is a mistake. The humans offered peace. We should at least consider it. They offered competition, replied coldly. They offered an alternative to the council. That is something we cannot allow. Cannot allow or will not allow. His voice was quiet but firm. We made them into enemies. We could just as easily have made them into allies. Enough. Eyes were hard. The decision is made. The humans have the council. They will learn the cost of that defiance. Watched the High Arbiter walk away. Then, quietly, opened a private channel and sent another message to Minu. War is coming. Prepare your people. On the unyielding dawn, Captain Shin stood at her viewport watching the stars. Admiral joined her, his face thoughtful. The council will not let this stand, he said. Will come for us. I know, his voice was steady. Are we ready? Thought of the fleet they had built in secret, the soldiers who had trained in darkness, the technology that had taken a decade to develop. They were not as strong as the council. They did not have as many ships or as many soldiers. But they had something the council did not. They had the fire of people who refused to be told what they could not do. We will have to be, he said. Smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on the day she volunteered for the first fold drive test. Confident, defiant, ready for whatever came next. Then let them come, she said. We will show them what humanity can do. Across the Terran Dominion, soldiers began to mobilize. Ships powered up their engines. Colonies prepared their defenses. And in the hearts of billions of humans, a simple truth burned bright. They had been exiled. They had been humiliated. They had been told they were nothing. Now they would prove just how wrong the galaxy had been. Warlord led his fleet into human space with absolute confidence. He commanded 300 warships, the pride of the Council's military. His soldiers were veterans of a dozen conflicts. His weapons were the most advanced in the galaxy. He expected the war to last 6 months. He was wrong. The first battle happened at Sigma Reach, a small human colony on the edge of Dominion space. Brought 50 ships, more than enough to overwhelm the defenders. He found 20 human vessels waiting for him. They are fools, laughed when he saw the enemy formation. They think 20 ships can stop 50. The battle began, and everything thought he knew about warfare changed. Human ships did not fight like council vessels. They did not form neat lines. They did not exchange fire at long range. Instead, they dove into the council formation like wolves attacking a herd. They were faster than anything had ever seen. They twisted and spun in ways that seemed impossible. And their weapons were terrifying. Shields that had never failed before flickered and died under concentrated fire. Armor that had stopped every enemy now cracked and melted. Lost 18 ships at Sigma Reach. The humans lost 3. How, he demanded as his remaining fleet retreated. How did they do this? General had trained his people well. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer had spent years learning how to fight against superior numbers. They knew they could not win a straight battle, so they did not fight straight battles. The Council thinks in formations, had taught them. They line up their ships and trade fire until one side breaks. We will never give them that formation. We will be everywhere and nowhere. We will strike and vanish. We will make them afraid of every shadow. On the ground, the war was even more brutal. Council troops landed on human colonies expecting easy victories. They found populations that refused to surrender. Farmers who became fighters overnight. Teachers who led resistance cells. Children who carried messages through tunnels that adult soldiers could not fit through. Every city is a fortress, one council officer reported. Every street is a battlefield. They do not stop fighting even when they are clearly beaten. They do not know how to give up. The war spread across the stars. Battles happened at places with names that would become legends. The Amber Nebula, the Iron Gate, the Fields of Silence. Each victory cost the Council more than they expected. Each defeat taught the humans how to fight even better. Captain Shin became the most famous pilot in human history at the Battle of the Amber Nebula. She led 12 ships against 60 Council cruisers. It should have been a massacre. It became a masterpiece. Used the nebula itself as a weapon. The thick clouds of gas and dust blinded Council sensors. She led her squadron through paths that the enemy could not follow, appearing behind their lines, destroying their support ships, vanishing before they could respond. When the battle ended, had lost 4 ships. The Council had lost 31. "She is a demon," the surviving Council commanders said. "She fights like nothing we have ever seen." But the war was not won through fighting alone. Lieutenant Ryu, intelligence network, worked in the shadows, spreading confusion and doubt. False reports sent Council fleets to empty systems. Real reports never reached the commanders who needed them. Every decision made was based on information that might or might not be true. Ambassador Minyu fought a different kind of battle. He traveled to neutral species that had no love for the Council, and convinced them to help. Some gave supplies. Others gave safe passage through their space. A few even sent volunteers to fight alongside humans. "The Council rules through fear," Minyu told them. "Humanity offers something else: partnership, equality, a chance to build something better together." And Dr. Han never stopped working. Even as the war raged, she and engineer developed new technologies: better shields, faster drives, weapons that could punch through Council armor like it was paper. "They had thousands of years to improve their technology," said. "They stopped trying because they thought they had reached perfection. We will never stop trying. That is our advantage." By the second year of the war, the Council coalition was beginning to crack. The war was expensive. Entire fleets had been destroyed. Colonies that were supposed to be conquered in weeks remained free after months of fighting. Species that had joined the Council out of fear began to question whether the Council could protect them. If humans could fight like this, could defeat the mighty Council fleet again and again, then what was the point of membership? Warlord pushed harder. He demanded more ships, more soldiers, more resources. But the Council had limits, and humanity seemed to have none. "They do not tire," reported to in frustration. "They do not break. Every time we destroy one of their ships, 3 more appear. Every time we take a colony, they take it back. It is like fighting water. We strike and they flow around us." By the 3rd year, even could see the truth. The war could not be won, not like this. Then came the blow that broke the Council's will. Emissary stood before the Galactic Assembly and spoke words that echoed across the galaxy. "I can no longer remain silent. The Council has become what it claimed to fear. We said humans were dangerous because they were aggressive, yet we attacked them first. We said they were unpredictable, yet they have offered peace at every opportunity. We said they were a threat to the galaxy, yet they have welcomed every species that reached out to them." His voice grew stronger. "Humanity offered friendship. We responded with chains. We have become tyrants, not protectors. I will not be part of this any longer." Walked out of the assembly. Within hours, 3 other delegates followed, then 5 more, then a dozen. The Council coalition was breaking apart. Sat alone in his chamber, watching reports of defeats and defections. Everything he had built was crumbling. The humans had not just beaten his fleets. They had exposed the Council's weakness for all to see. He sent a message to Admiral Park. It contained only 3 words: request for ceasefire. Received the message on the bridge of the unyielding dawn. Around him, his crew watched in silence. 3 years of war, thousands of lives lost, countless sacrifices made, and now, finally, the Council was willing to talk. He thought of who had led them through the darkest days. He thought of whose soldiers had fought against impossible odds. He thought of and Minyu and all the others who had given everything for this moment. "Respond," he said quietly. "Tell them we accept." looked at him with surprise. After everything they did to us. Nodded slowly. We did not fight to destroy them. We fought to prove that we could not be destroyed. That has been accomplished. He paused. But the negotiations will be on our terms. They will accept our conditions, or the war will continue. The message went out. The galaxy held its breath. In the colonies of the Terran Dominion, people dared to hope. In the council chambers of Nexus Prime, delegates wondered what came next. And in the space between, where human ships patrolled the borders they had defended with blood and fire, soldiers looked at the stars and allowed themselves to dream of peace. The war was ending, but humanity's story was just beginning. 15 years after their exile, humans returned to the Galactic Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime. President walked through the great doors with her head held high. Her hair was white now, and her face was lined with years of struggle, but her eyes still burned with the same fire that had lit them on the day of humanity's rejection. Behind her walked the architects of their impossible victory. Admiral Park, his uniform decorated with medals he had never wanted but accepted for the sake of his soldiers. General, whose ground forces had never lost a single colony they were ordered to hold. Ambassador Minu, who had turned enemies into friends across half the galaxy. Dr. Han, whose genius had given humanity the stars. Captain Shin, who had become a legend in the pilot academies of a dozen worlds. They walked the same halls where they had been humiliated. They passed the same delegates who had voted for their quarantine. The silence was heavy with memory. High Arbiter waited at the center of the chamber. He looked older too, his gray skin pale, his eyes tired. The war had cost him everything. His power, his confidence, his certainty that the council was right. President, he said, his voice formal and careful, the Galactic Council welcomes you to Nexus Prime. Did not smile, High Arbiter. We have prepared a proposal, gestured to a document floating in the display beside him. Full council membership for humanity, all previous restrictions lifted, complete integration into galactic society, trade rights, travel rights, everything you were 15 years ago. The offer hung in the air. Around the chamber, delegates leaned forward in their seats. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Studied the document for a long moment, then she looked up at, "We decline." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. His face went blank with surprise. "You decline," he repeated. "This is everything you asked for." "No," his voice was calm and clear. "This is everything we were. That is not the same thing." She stepped forward, her presence filling the room. 15 years ago, we came here as petitioners. We begged for acceptance. We followed your rules, met your standards, did everything you asked. And you rejected us anyway. Not because we failed your tests, because you were afraid of what we might become. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not fight a war to join your council. We fought to prove that we did not need your permission to exist. We have proven that. She gestured to her delegation. We built our own FTL technology. We established colonies across the outer reach. We defended our people against everything you threw at us. We did this alone because you gave us no other choice. Opened his mouth to speak, but was not finished. The Terran Dominion will remain independent. We will not become part of the council. Not now, not ever. Her voice softened slightly. But we did not come here to reject you. We came to offer you something the council has never understood, choice. She turned to address the entire assembly. Any species that wishes to join the Terran Dominion may do so, council member or not. You will be welcomed as equals, full partners in building something new. Trade, travel, cultural exchange, all will be open. We will not demand tribute. We will not enforce conformity. We will not tell you what you can and cannot do with your own futures. The chamber was absolutely silent. We are not replacing the council, continued. We are offering an alternative. For too long there has been only one path to the stars, submission to your rules, your judgments, your control. Now there are two paths. Species can choose which one they want to walk. She looked directly at. That is the real reason you feared us. Not because we were aggressive or unpredictable, because we offered something dangerous, an example, proof that your way is not the only way. His hands were trembling. He had ruled the galaxy for centuries. He had never faced a challenge like this. Military threats could be crushed. Political rivals could be outmaneuvered. But ideas were impossible to kill. This is unacceptable, he said finally. The Council cannot allow competing authority. You cannot stop it, replied simply. The Dominion exists, our colonies thrive, our allies grow stronger every day. You can reject our offer and try to continue as before, but the galaxy has changed. Your species see what humanity has built. They wonder if they could build something similar. She smiled slightly. That wondering will not stop just because you wish it would. The session ended without resolution, but had not expected immediate acceptance. Change took time. Seeds needed room to grow. As the human delegation departed, something unexpected happened. Emissary approached them in the corridor, had paid a heavy price for defecting during the war. Stripped of rank, excluded from council deliberations, watched constantly by security, but there was peace in his eyes. Thank you, said quietly, for showing us what was possible. Minyu clasped hand. Thank you for being brave enough to see it. The journey home took 3 days. Spent most of it in her cabin, reading reports and answering messages. The galaxy was reacting to her speech. Some species were outraged, others were intrigued, and some, the ones who had suffered under council rule for too long, were already reaching out to discuss membership in the Dominion. When the fleet arrived at New Hope, the capital world of the Terran Dominion, thousands of people were waiting. They lined the streets from the spaceport to the assembly hall, cheering and waving flags, walked among them, shaking hands, accepting embraces, listening to their stories. An old man stopped her near the end of the route. His name was, and he had been one of the original colonists who had left Earth in secret during the Silent Decade. I remember when we launched, he said, his voice rough with emotion. We thought we might never see home again. We thought we might be the only free humans in the galaxy. He gestured at the crowds around them. Look at us now. Look at what we have become. Put her hand on his shoulder. We built this together, all of us. Every sacrifice, every struggle, it led here. That evening, the first session of the Terran Assembly convened with alien representatives in attendance. 3 species had already formally requested Dominion membership. 12 more had sent observers. The gallery was full of beings from worlds that had never imagined being treated as equals. Address them from the central podium. This is not an ending. This is a beginning. We have proven that humanity cannot be caged. Now we must prove that we can build something worthy of that freedom. She looked out at the faces watching her, human and alien together, united not by force or fear but by choice. The galaxy told us we were too dangerous, too ambitious, too different. They were right. We are all of those things, but we are also dreamers. We look at the stars and we wonder what might be possible. We imagine futures that have never existed and then we build them. Her voice grew strong. That is our gift. That is what we offer to anyone brave enough to stand with us. The chance to dream, the freedom to reach, the right to become whatever you wish to be. She raised her hand. Welcome to the Terran Dominion. Welcome to the new dawn. Later that night, Admiral Park stood at the viewport of the unyielding dawn, watching the city lights below. Captain Shin found him there, 2 glasses of rice wine in her hands. Celebrating, she asked, offering him a glass. Remembering, took the wine but did not drink. 15 years ago we were nothing, exiled, humiliated, told we had no future among the stars. And now, he smiled slightly, now we have changed the galaxy forever. Stood beside him, looking at the stars. So many of them now had human colonies. So many more had allies who believed in what humanity had built. Do you think the Council will survive? She asked. Perhaps, perhaps not. It is not our concern anymore. Finally took a sip of wine. We offered them partnership. If they are too proud to accept it, that is their choice. So what now? Thought about the question. He thought about the long journey from rejection to triumph. He thought about the soldiers he had commanded, the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost along the way. He thought about humanity, stubborn and brilliant and impossible to control. Now, he said slowly, we show them what humanity does with freedom. Smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on every battlefield, in every impossible situation, through every moment when victory seemed beyond reach. I liked the sound of that. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing. New alliances were forming. Old orders were crumbling. The future was uncertain and vast and full of possibility. And humanity, the species that had refused to stay in its cage, was finally free to explore it all. The exile was over. The dominion had begun.